Hi folks, how you doing? It's Will here, back for another fight card prediction. We're going to be breaking down UFC 187 from Las Vegas, Nevada, as two title fights headline this card, as we have Anthony Rumble Johnson facing off against Daniel Cormier for the vacant UFC light heavyweight championship, as John Jones was stripped of that title a few weeks back, and we have Chris Weidman defending his UFC middleweight title against Vitor Belfort. Coming off UFC from the Philippines, basically I did shit with everything. Had a few bets, nothing too much, did crap there, did really bad with my picks, did really bad with my counter move picks. So yeah, but see, we're going to move on to this card. If you think Anthony Rumble Johnson wins this fight, give me a thumbs up. If you think Daniel Cormier wins this fight, give me a thumbs down, and we'll see what you people out there are thinking, who's going to win this fight, because it is a very close, tight matchup. I say this fight, from the kind of the beginning of the card all the way till the start of the main card and further on, it just escalates into a really great, good card overall. Really looking forward to watching it next Saturday night. And we're starting off in the flyweight division. As we have Justin Scoggins facing off against Josh Sample. Now both these guys are coming off, they're on 2 fights losing streaks. Justin Scoggins, he lost a very kind of close split decision loss to Dustin Ortiz, which I actually think he won, and he lost last time out to John Moraga. He was dominating that fight against John Moraga using his striking, went for a takedown, which I thought was a little bit weird, and then got submitted off his back via guillotine choke. A guy who has a karate base, fights out American Top Team, good movement, good lateral movement, hits you with some good leg kicks, fairly extravagant on his feet, and gets the job done. He's just been a little bit short his last few fights. He's facing Josh Sample here, who lost to Zach Makovsky, and I saw firsthand in Dublin last year Josh Sample, where he was against Patrick Holohan, and he just didn't look great. He got hit with a big uppercut. Holohan took his back, submitted him, but during that week he had a really tough weight cut. There was one fighter that everybody was talking about, he might miss weight. I saw on the Thursday night before the Friday weigh-ins, this man away up in the top of the hotel getting piggybacked back to his room because he was exhausted, didn't know who it was, and we found out it was Josh Sample, and it kind of showed his performance against Holohan, who just beat him up fairly quickly and got the win there. I think Scoggins, this is his fight to win. Sample will try and use his wrestling, but I like Justin Scoggins overall. I think Scoggins has some more chance of a finish as well, but I'm going to go Justin Scoggins via decision. Next up in the lightweight division, we've got Islam Makhachev against Leo Kuntz. Makhachev is 11-0, 3 wins by KO, 4 wins by submissions, 4 wins by decision. A Russian Sambo champion. Doesn't have much in the way, too much of striking. He's pretty wild with his strikes, very loopy with his striking, like some of the other Russian Sambo guys out there. But his takedowns and his control on the ground is second to none. Leo Kuntz, on the other hand, fighting out American Top Team, doesn't really throw too many strikes in bunches, especially combos. Throws a lot of leg kicks, and against somebody like Islam here, he's going to get taken down really convincingly, and that's how I think this fight will go. I think Makhachev can actually finish the fight here. I think if you're playing counter move, it's a better fight to pick him in this one. Personally think after this fight he should drop down at the 145 pound weight division, as I think he has that's where he should be pretty much. I don't think he's a big enough lightweight to contend in that division. Going to featherweight division, I think he's got a great chance of making a good run and getting himself into the rankings in that one. So I like Makhachev here via, I'm going to go 3rd round TKO here. Next up we've got Mike Pyle against Colby Covington. Pretty interesting fight here. Looking forward to this one. It's one of the ones, it was Mike Pyle against Sean Spencer. I was not really too bothered. But Colby Covington coming in as a guy, he's a good prospect, but he's facing a very tough veteran here in Mike Pyle. Now Mike Pyle fights out of Las Vegas, out of Syndicate MMA, been around a long time, very crafty veteran, tough everywhere, but he is kind of fading a little bit, his chin's going. We've seen that against Matt Brown, we've seen it against Jordan Mayen, and we've also seen it back in the day against Rory McDonald as well. When it goes to the ground, he's very dangerous, and he can win the fight from down there. We've seen him beat kind of up and coming guys. I think John Hathaway was one of them back in the day. I saw that at UFC 120, and but he's against Colby Covington here, 7-0, 5 wins via submission, fights out American top team, predominantly a wrestling base with striking, which is coming along slowly but surely. In his 2 UFC wins, he beat Wang Sai, and I think it was by submission. Second one was down in Brazil against Wagner Silva, where he won via third round submission as well. Pretty close matchup, this one. I just think Colby Covington, being the younger fighter, I think he's the stronger wrestler as well. He will have to be very careful going to the ground with Pyle, because Pyle, as I said, is a crafty veteran, and I think he's got about 16, maybe 17 wins via submission as well. But I think Colby Covington can do enough with his strong wrestling, his good transitions on the ground to keep Pyle there without not getting caught. So I like Covington via decision. Moving on to the women's strawweight division, we have Rose Thug Namajunas against Nina Ansaroff. Now, I think this is a great fight for Namajunas after coming off that loss to Carla Esparza back in December. On the Tough Show, there was nobody bigger than Rose Namajunas. She took out her 3 opponents in that one, all by submission. I think Jojo Calder was one of them, which I was devastated about. Randa Marcos was the other, which got her to the championship fight against Carla, the Cookie Monster, at Esparza, where I think her aggressiveness, which is good in some capacity, was really bad for that fight, and Esparza had an easy time timing the takedowns, taking Namajunas down off of her aggressiveness, and getting the stoppage victory there. Hopefully we see a little bit more of a patient Rose Namajunas here. I think if we do so, she'll get a finish. She's against Nina Ansaroff, who's coming off a loss to Juliana Lima down in Brazil. As I say, I think this is just a really good matchup for Rose. I can see her stopping this fight, so I'm going to go a first round submission. I like Rose Namajunas. Get on your counter move team, 5,300, go for it. Middleweight division, we have Uriah Hall against Rafael Natal. Natal's a veteran, he's been around a long time. Doesn't beat many of the top guys. He beat Tom Watson last time out. Now Tom Watson, I'm not a big fan of him. I think he's shit pretty much. Doesn't really offer much. But Natal, he is a black belt. He is quite good when he goes to the ground. His striking's not great. He's against Uriah Hall here, who is coming off a victory over Ron Stallings, with a pretty vicious cut that Stallings got in that fight. But he looked a little bit more like the Uriah Hall. He was pumping up the jab, he was hitting him with some big power shots. Personally, I think Uriah Hall is a really good. I think he's actually on the way to making a run in this division, hopefully, and I think he can take out Rafael Natal here. So I'm going to go Uriah Hall via second round TKO. Moving on to the welterweight division, we have Dong Young Kim against Josh Buckman. Another interesting fight I'm really looking forward to watching. Both guys coming off losses. Dong Young Kim got knocked out by Tyron Woodley in the first round, and Josh Buckman lost via a decision against Hector Lombard. But after that, Hector Lombard got popped for steroids, got a year suspension. But in that fight, it was clear to see that Hector Lombard was a superior fighter, better grappling, better striking. Buckman did try to engage with Lombard a little bit, but just didn't have enough for Hector Lombard and lost a decision victory. Whereas, Kim got knocked out by T Wood. I think it was in Macau last year in the main event down there. Before that, he had some beautiful knockouts. He's becoming a lot more aggressive the more he's in the UFC now. He has got the judo base, but he had the spinning back elbow against John Hathaway, knocked him out there. Beautiful KO, looping right hook against Eric Silva. Very close fight here to pick between, but I think I'm just going to edge Dong Young Kim, but it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Josh Buckman wins this fight as well. And the main event of the Fox Sports 1 prelim card is the returning John Dodson against Zach Makowski. Now, Zach Makowski won his last fight against Tim Elliott, a perfect opponent pretty much for Makowski. Just like Rose Namajunas, Tim Elliott's aggressiveness cost him, was an easy takedown for Zach Makowski, and but he's against probably the most dynamic fighter in this division, I think, against John Dodson, who's it's great to see him back because he is the probably the only guy in the division who maybe can give Demetrius Johnson fits in that division. His speed, his footwork, and especially his power in that division is clear to see, and he can hurt DJ. He's coming off a win. He's been out for nearly a year. He beat John Moraga via, I think it was a doctor stoppage in the second round last year, if I remember right, in Albuquerque. I think it's a good fight for him. I think he can finish this fight. I think he will finish the fight, and I'm going to go John Dodson by TKO in the first. Moving on to the pay-per-view segment of the card here, we're starting the flyweight division. Joseph Benavidez against John Moraga. Fun fight to start off this pay-per-view. Joseph Benavidez, he's like the Uriah Faber, I think, of the flyweight division. He's always going to be in title contention because he beats everybody else bar the champion. Coming off a beautiful couple of victories over Dustin Ortiz where he dominated him, and before that I think he beat Tim Elliott with a beautiful guillotine choke from the mount, which looked nasty, hands in guillotine, where Elliott had to tap out with his feet. John Moraga's coming off a win over Willie Gates, fought in Phoenix, I think it was back in December if I remember right. He got hit, I think he got hit with a nut shot, and it really hurt him, and he thought the ref was going to stop, and Gates came in, took him down, nearly submitted him. After that, Moraga, I think he was in beast mode, and he came out in the third round and took out Willie Gates via submission there. I think Joseph Benavidez beats anybody in this division except for maybe John Dodson and potentially Demetrius Johnson. I like Joseph Benavidez. I think he can stop Moraga here. I think he might actually do it by submission as well, so I'm going to go Benavidez by a third round submission. Moving on to the heavyweight division, which is an interesting fight in itself. We have Travis Happer Brown against Andre the Pitbull Arlovsky. Both guys, the reason this is quite interesting is because I'm sure both these guys were actually former training partners for one another, because Travis Brown used to fight out of the Jackson Winklejohn team in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Andre Arlovsky still fights there right now. So Travis Brown, coming off that win over Brendan Schaub, very, very dominant victory there. TKO victory at UFC 181 back in December. Before that, started off well against Fabrizio Verdum and just got steamrolled in that fight. Got hurt. I think he broke some bones in his body, which kind of held him back. Before that, he had the KO of Josh Barnett with the elbows from the clinch when Barnett was trying to take him down. We had Overeem. It was fucking brilliant because I'm not the biggest fan of Alistair Overeem. Got hurt with some body shots, came back and knocked Overeem out, and he had the knockout via elbows against Gabriel Gonzaga. Since Andre Arlovsky's come back to the UFC, he's a former UFC heavyweight champion back in the day. He had that pretty controversial victory over Brendan Schaub in Vancouver last year at 174. I thought Schaub won that fight, and then he faced Antonio Silva in Brazil. Now Antonio Silva is just a deteriorating fighter with no chin, and it showed in that fight with Arlovsky when he caught him with that one. Heavyweight fight could easily finish in a knockout. I think this might go to decision. I think Arlovsky is very tough, so I'm going to go Travis Brown via decision. Moving on to the lightweight division, we have the Cowboy Donald Cerrone facing off against John Makdessi. I'm a little bit pissed off because this fight was supposed to be Khabib Nurmagomedov against Donald Cerrone. The Cowboy versus the Russian Cowboy, as Khabib's going around saying, which was quite funny. Donald Cerrone is just on a tear at the minute, 7-fight win streak. His last loss was to the now champion Rafael dos Anjos. Faced Benson Henderson last time out, and personally I thought Benson Henderson won. I was one pissed off dude with that event because I picked all 11 fights, I picked 10 right, and the only one that let me down was Benson Henderson, which cost me a shitload of money. But still, Donald Cerrone, before that he beat he beat Miles Jury, and then he beat Eddie Alvarez at UFC 178, where he just dominated both pretty much. If he wins his fight, he will get Dos Anjos next, I believe. He's against John McDessie, who's coming in here on short notice. He actually beat a striker in Shane Campbell in his last encounter at UFC 186 back in Montreal. I just think this is too big a step up for McDessie. I think Cerrone will use his kickboxing skills. I think he can take out McDessie in this fight as well. If this goes to ground, it's all Donald Cerrone. So I'm going to go Donald Cerrone. I'm actually going to go TKO in the second, and hopefully we'll see him and Dos Anjos to lock it up later on this year. And on to one of the two main fights of this entire card, and a fight I'm actually looking forward more to this fight than I am the so-called main event in Johnson and Cormier, as we have the middleweight king Chris Weidman facing off against the veteran former champion in the UFC Vitor the Phenom Belfort. Now, this is the fight I've been waiting to see for a long time. There's been injuries that's kept these two out. I mean, Vitor Belfort is just not... We've barely seen him in the last 2 years. He's fought one time, maybe 2 times, sorry. I think he fought in May 2013, and then he knocked out Dan Henderson in November 2013 in Brazil. See, Chris Weidman hasn't been the most active fighter in the UFC, last fought in July last year. But see, Vitor Belfort, he knocked out Luke Rockhold, Michael Bisping and Dan Henderson all via head kick knockouts. Chris Weidman, he knocked out Anderson Silva, won the second fight via leg fracture, and then had a very entertaining scrap against Leo Machida. Chris Weidman is your modern day MMA guy who is very strong everywhere, a strong striker with a lot of power, great wrestling, is good in the clinch, and when it goes to the ground he's got that black belt. I think he's just a new black belt as well. He's got the submission skills, where obviously Vitor Belfort's been around for fucking ages. I remember watching this guy years ago, but I think him not being as active, Belfort, and he's coming off the juice as well, he's coming off the TRT. I don't think he's going to be a fight as much a hard fight if he was on the TRT. I like Chris Weidman via submission in this fight. I think we saw in the John Jones fight with Belfort, even though he has submission skills himself and nearly caught John Jones in that first round, once he gasses out a little bit, I think Weidman will be able to wear him out and catch him in a submission, if not a TKO victory. So I'm going to go Chris Weidman via TKO, submission in the 4th round. And on to the main event, as they're saying, for this card. We have Anthony Johnson against Daniel Cormier for the vacant UFC light heavyweight championship of the world, after John Jones got stripped a few weeks back. So in my opinion, whoever wins this fight will be nothing more than a paper champion, and I might be a little bit biased saying that because I am a big John Jones fan, but say John Jones fucked up, so he deserves everything that he kind of gets at the minute. So getting into this fight, we've got Anthony Johnson, who's since coming back into the UFC has been nothing more than a destroyer. Destroyed Little Nog, played around with Phil Davis, and then absolutely decimated Alexander Gustafsson back in January this year. Where Daniel Cormier lost in that fight with John Jones back in January. Looked kind of very much a second best in that fight. John Jones had him pretty much the advantage everywhere, took Cormier down as well. It's a thing with Cormier, he's a guy who is good clinch work, great wrestling, he has power, but since coming down to the light heavyweight division from the heavyweight division, he hasn't really brought that power down with him, which I'm a little bit surprised of. He stopped Cummins, of course, he stopped Henderson via submission, but he has got his hands full here against Rumble Johnson, who he puts his pinky on you and you're in trouble. He hit Alexander Gustafsson with a tiny shot that started just an avalanche of abuse from Johnson back in Sweden. He's just a destroyer, and I've found it really hard to pick between these two. Usually I would go with the wrestler in this, but I'm still finding it really tough to pick. I've been going back and forward kind of the last week, pretty much since the matchup was made, in fact, and Cormier was installed in this fight. but I think I'm going to go with Daniel Cormier by the slightest of margins. I think this could be a very fun fight. I think if Johnson doesn't get it finished early, I think Cormier will come more into it and take the decision victory. So I'm going to go Daniel Cormier via a decision victory, unanimous decision. Not by much though, it's going to be very close. So that's my fights for UFC 187. I will be back next week for UFC Fight Night 67 from Goiânia in Brazil, as the natural born killer Carlos Condit returns in a great main event against Thiago Alves, with Nick Lentz against the very exciting Charles Oliveira in the co-main event. So that's my picks. Please comment down below, chat to me about MMA, that's what I'm here for. Subscribe if you can, share if you can. If you like to come and play counter move, just message me and I'll add you to the game. Follow me on Twitter, WillMartin7MMA, and say I will be back next week. Enjoy the fights when they come around, and keep your eyes out for the more videos coming from me in the future. Take care.